came forward with a claim that the US government is hiding alien spacecraft in the Nevada desert. They erased his records, tried to bury the whole thing. But what if he was telling the truth? This is Bob Lazar, and what might be the biggest cover-up in modern history. Chapter 1. The Whistleblower Appears. It wasn't a sci-fi author, not a conspiracy theorist, just a quiet, technical man, sitting under the harsh lights of a Las Vegas news studio. The year was 1989. The anchor was George Knapp, a respected journalist at a Las Vegas news station. Not the kind of person who covered flying saucers, but this wasn't just another UFO story. The man in front of him wore large glasses, a tucked-in shirt. He didn't look like a whistleblower or an actor. His voice, calm, almost bored. His story, unlike anything ever broadcast on American television.
I worked at a site south of Area 51, S4. I saw 9 craft, not from Earth. I helped take them apart.
His name was Bob Lazar, and until that moment, no one had ever heard of him. Within days, he became a target. The government denied everything. His name was missing from employee rosters, his education records gone, his past scrubbed clean. He was threatened, mocked, laughed off as a hoax. But the details he gave about the base, the security layout, the fuel systems, they weren't vague, they weren't cinematic, they were dry, technical, almost too boring to be made up. And unlike most UFO believers, Lazar never said he saw aliens, no abductions, no messages from beyond. He didn't write a book. He didn't launch a brand. He vanished. But in that brief appearance, he said this.
The craft I worked on was powered by something we couldn't explain. The engine didn't connect to anything. We couldn't even move it.
That was in 1989, more than 30 years later. Somehow, some of what he said no longer sounds impossible. Chapter 2. Inside S4. Lazar's story wasn't vague. It was clear, detailed, and unsettling. He said he worked at a place called S4, a secret facility built into the side of a mountain, just south of Area 51. The entrances were hidden. Camouflaged hangar doors blended seamlessly with the rocky terrain. Everything was locked down tight under military control. Inside, Lazar claimed there were 9 flying craft, not from Earth. Each was stored in its own bay. Some looked familiar, round and smooth, like the classic saucers from old movies. Others were stranger, odd shapes, uneven edges, and metal that didn't behave like anything we know. One of them stood out, and that's the one he was assigned to study. It was small, silver gray, shaped like a disc, smooth from top to bottom, no seams, no bolts, no visible parts. He said his job was to figure out how it worked, but everything was on a need-to-know basis. He worked with one other scientist, and they weren't allowed to talk with other teams. Even inside the program, no one had the full story.
You couldn't walk around freely. You didn't get the full story. You were shown exactly what they wanted you to see.
At the center of the craft was a power source, about the size of a basketball. It ran on something called Element 115. He didn't just guess that name. He said it back in 1989, long before scientists officially created the element in a lab. To Lazar, it wasn't just a theory. He said he saw it with his own eyes and watched it power the craft.
The reactor didn't make a sound, no heat, you couldn't even touch it. It pushed your hand away like magnets do.
This wasn't a normal engine. It didn't burn fuel or create thrust. It bent space and made gravity itself pull the craft forward.
It's not like a rocket or a jet, it bends the space around it. The ship falls into that like gravity pulling it ahead.
That, he said, is why the craft could turn instantly, why it could stop and start without crushing whoever was inside. The inside of the craft was even stranger. Lazar said the ship wasn't built for humans. The seats were small, almost like they were made for children. Everything inside was molded from the same smooth metal. No buttons, no screens, no writing. It felt completely alien, not just in where it came from, but in how it was built.
It looked like it was grown, like someone printed it all from a single piece. Nothing was put together.
He also said he read a set of internal briefings. They mentioned biology reports, autopsies, star maps. One detail stuck with him: Zeta Reticuli, a star system about 39 light years from Earth. That's where they said the craft came from, but he couldn't confirm it himself. He wasn't allowed to take notes. He couldn't ask questions. Everything was on lockdown. Even inside the program, knowledge was controlled, like someone was pulling the strings. Then came the surveillance. Lazar said his phone was tapped. His house was watched. He felt like he was being followed. What started as curiosity quickly turned into fear. Eventually, his clearance was taken away. No reason, no explanation. That's when he brought friends out into the desert, to a spot overlooking the base. He knew the test schedule. He knew when the craft would be flown. And what they saw was strange. Bright lights in the sky, moving in ways no plane should. Sharp turns, silent glides, fast bursts of motion. It didn't prove anything, but it was enough to scare them. Not long after, Lazar said officials came to his house. He believed they were sending a message: stay quiet. And that's when something in him changed. He decided that keeping silent was more dangerous than going public. So he spoke out, on the record, with George Knapp. Not to get rich, not to chase fame, but as he put it,
If I die now, at least the story is out there. At least people will know why.
Chapter 3, Fallout and Erasure. Bob Lazar's story didn't fade away, it exploded. When he first went public in 1989, his face was hidden. He used a false name, but that didn't last long. Soon, the name Bob Lazar was everywhere, linked to UFO secrets and Area 51 conspiracies. The media ran with it. News reports, talk shows, endless headlines. The government, silent. And that silence only made people more curious. But the attention came with consequences. Almost immediately, Lazar's credibility was under fire. He said he had master's degrees from MIT and Caltech, but no records could be found. No diplomas, no transcripts, not even a photo in a yearbook.
They erased me. That's exactly what I expected them to do. Make it so I never existed.
His former employer, Los Alamos National Laboratory, denied he ever worked there. But someone found a 1982 phone directory, and Lazar's name was in it. Listed as a physicist, a local newspaper from the same year profiled his work on particle accelerators. Still, the denials kept coming. Investigative reporter George Knapp started digging, and everywhere he looked, something was missing. People who remembered Bob had no records. Documents were gone. It didn't look like a cover-up. It looked like a cleanup. Every time we found someone who could verify Bob's past, their records were missing too. Meanwhile, Lazar said things were getting worse. He felt watched. His phone would ring and no one would speak. He was arrested in 1990, tied to a prostitution case. He believed it was meant to discredit him publicly. The narrative began to change, from brilliant whistleblower to unreliable conspiracy theorist. But Lazar never changed his story. He didn't sell it. He didn't write a book. He didn't start a cult. He just disappeared, quietly, uncomfortably, leaving everyone else to argue about him. Years passed. Skeptics picked apart every sentence from his interviews. They pointed to missing degrees, broken timelines, and a lack of solid proof. But others saw something different. They saw a man who never profited, who had nothing to gain, and who, decades later, still stood by every word.
I don't care if anyone believes me. I'm not trying to convince you. I just told the truth, and I walked away.
In 2018, Bob Lazar returned in a Netflix documentary directed by Jeremy Corbell. He looked older. He said he was still being watched, still afraid. But the world had changed. UFOs, now called UAPs, were no longer just science fiction. The US Navy had confirmed sightings. The Pentagon had released videos. Suddenly, Lazar didn't sound so crazy anymore.
People used to laugh. Now they're listening. Not because I became more believable, but because the world finally caught up.
By then, Lazar was running a science supply company, building particle detectors and selling rare element kits. He rarely gave interviews, and he never claimed to know more than what he saw. That's why his story endured. He didn't say he met aliens. He didn't describe alien bodies or government deals. He talked about a machine, a reactor, a propulsion system, a strange material that bent space itself, a puzzle, just one piece of something bigger. And whether Bob Lazar was part of a disinformation campaign, a secret project, or something even stranger, his story never changed. In a world full of wild claims and hoaxes, Bob Lazar stayed stubbornly consistent. To some, that was his strength. To others, his best performance. But either way, his legacy is undeniable. He gave Area 51 a name. He gave the world an image to imagine. And he gave both believers and skeptics something to argue about for decades. Chapter 4. What if it was real? For years, people laughed at Bob Lazar. He was investigated, ignored. But over time, something changed. Not because anyone proved he was right, but because the world started catching up. Back in 1989, when he first told his story, the idea of the government working with alien tech sounded crazy. Today, it's on the news. Governments now admit they've seen things in the sky they can't explain. Military pilots talk about objects that move in ways we don't understand. And official reports use words like non-human technology. But Bob said all of this over 30 years ago.
It's technology from another civilization. There's no doubt in my mind.
And he didn't just say it was real. He explained how it worked. He mentioned something called Element 115, long before scientists officially discovered it. He talked about bending gravity, way before anyone else did. And he described a system where people only knew small parts of the project, never the full picture.
We're not alone. We've never been alone. We're just not ready to accept it.
Even now, people still question him. They bring up the missing degrees, the job history that doesn't check out. They say he could have made the whole thing up, maybe for attention. But if it was fake, it was a weird way to do it. He never made money from the story. He never changed his version. And he got into real trouble because of it.
I didn't ask for any of this. I just couldn't stay quiet about what I saw.
Is Bob Lazar telling the truth? The real question is, what if he is? What if those crafts were real? What if we've had technology for years that could change everything? How we travel, how we use energy, even how we see the universe. What if we've never been alone and some people have known all along? That's what makes Bob's story powerful. It's not just about aliens or secret bases. It's about what might be possible. Because whether he was telling the truth, part of a cover-up, or just someone who couldn't let it go, he changed the conversation. And maybe that's what really matters. You've just watched one of the most controversial stories ever told, and there are more like it. So subscribe to the channel and don't miss what's coming next.